Welcome to Constructive, a podcast about construction, technology, and whatever else comes up. Hope you enjoy. Thanks, Javier, for coming on Constructive Podcast. Really excited to have you here. I've been watching you on LinkedIn and really enjoy your Friday feature videos. That's kind of what got me to say, I need to get this guy on the podcast because it's engaging. I loved that one that you did a couple weeks ago where you're on a horizontal desk, and just wondering, are you really going to patent that idea? Did you like my massage hold idea? What do you think about it?
I think it's got legs. Literally, the desk will have legs, and also that idea. For those who don't know, I've been doing this Key Feature Friday thing for a few years now. When the way it started was, we start building the product, bring it to market. You think of all the normal channels of go to market, and one of them at the time we had some people helping out with marketing, and we were like talking one day, and they're like, okay, learning about social media marketing, and we're like, okay, when's the best time to post and all that kind of stuff. And there's a lot of stuff you can search on optimal times to post on social media based on different platforms and whatnot. And one thing we learned from that was that Friday afternoon's the absolute worst for specifically for LinkedIn, like B2B kind of stuff. So we're like, perfect, in theory that shouldn't be much competition. Maybe no one will look at this anyway, so who cares? And we just started kind of having some fun and coming up with silly like interludes, and then just showing a feature called Key Feature Friday, and we just show some stuff but have a little bit of fun. I had a old construction guy tell me, he's like, oh, a little brevity in construction doesn't hurt because everything's so serious, for obvious reasons. Construction is a serious industry, people can get hurt. So yeah, he was just like, I like it, it makes me laugh a little bit on Friday, and it's just kind of grown from there. And as always, just scramble at about 2:00 Pacific, that what the heck am I going to do to figure out, like right now, I have no idea what I'm going to do later today, feature wise and interlude wise. We used to be pretty in depth. We did all kinds of crazy stuff. I got kidnapped at vehicles and whatnot, but I'll keep it a little tighter. But anyway, so yeah, that's a little bit of guerrilla marketing, building up a bit of a small base of people that like watching. And I mean, these things get, just to give you some data, like I think they'll get like, I don't know, between 5,000 and 10,000 views, organic, just on my personal LinkedIn page, and get a decent amount of engagement. And a lot of people have brought up in sales calls, and they're, hey, I watched your Friday videos, it's really great, blah blah blah. Or I keep in touch, kind of tabs on what you guys are doing on the product with this. So really keeping it rolling.
I think humor is so important. Like you said, construction can be a very contentious industry, and I loved that approach. I try to find ways to either inject some humor, even in those like conflicts. In the middle of a conflict, if I can connect with a contractor that's going through a hard situation, and maybe I'm even the one pressing on him, and I can connect with him on a personal level or provide some humor to the situation, it's so important. And I just love that you're using that as an opportunity to get people to giggle a little bit, and then show a cool feature too. And I feel like all the ones that I've seen, so everybody go check out Javier's Friday posts where he talks about features. They're fun to watch, and you'll get a little bit of information on what the software can do and how they're updating it. I love that too, that you guys really put some effort into updating and maintaining the software, getting it to really be catered to your users. And apologies, I'm not a super user of your product yet, but I just watch it so closely because I see the value in it. I see contractors use it. So I'm more on the construction management, like owner's rep side. So us using the software isn't as likely as me getting a contractor to use it, because it's like, hey, you guys have a logistics plan. I think this would be really powerful for you to use. You can actually like pull in real equipment. It will be the size it actually is. You can see a concrete pump, how far it's going to get. Can it reach this side of the site? And there's so many cool features about that. I want to get into that. Let's put that on the back burner. I just want to ask you a little bit about your background, and talking about that comedy side of things. Like, what is your background? Why? I feel like you're a little bit different of a character in this software space. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Yeah, so definitely have had a meandering path to get to where I am today. I was a professional athlete to start my career. So I played Canadian football in the Canadian Football League for 8 years. So after, uh, and actually, it took me a while to graduate my undergraduate degree. So I'm the Van Wilder at the University of British Columbia up here in Canada. So it took me about 10 years to get my undergrad. I was not the best academic focused student athlete at the time. But I was very focused on athletics. So I played football, I played other sports as well. And then when I got to near the end of my career, kind of like 29, 30 years old, I was like, okay, what the heck am I going to do with my life? I got to figure things out. One thing that's unique about professional sports is you spend kind of like 1/3 of your life not preparing for the next 2/3 of your life. So, I got into business stuff. I was like, oh, I could be a coach. I could do something. So I decided to go back to school. And in business school, I met my now co-founder, who is a very interesting guy. He was kind of early in the whole BIM digital delivery side of things. Worked at places like Gary Partners, Gary Technologies, kind of the early 2000s, mid 2000s, kind of first group of people kind of building complicated projects in 3D and doing all this kind of digital fabrication type stuff. So we met. I kind of worked a little bit in construction management, planning, not enough to know what the problems are. And my partner was a technical kind of individual that knows how to solve those problems. So we got together, 10 years ago, and got a storage locker together, shook hands, said, let's start a company and figure out what we're going to do. And so it's not a very sexy start. We didn't see some great opportunity and it's a magical light bulb moment. None of that. It was a lean startup approach, bootstrapped, find a customer, serve a customer, learn, pivot, all those things. And so over time, I did get some practical experience, in trailers and stuff like that. But over time, I'm just kind of learning on the job, and we started developing solutions for the construction industry. At first, I'll categorize what we were offering to the market, which we still do to some degree in our services businesses, like highly complex, more like expensive solutions for the market, so high complexity, high value, but potentially high cost. And with CmBuilder.io, CmBuilder.io is a product. It's called CmBuilder, but with CmBuilder, we saw an opportunity as the maturity curve kind of like goes out with construction technology that things need to be far more accessible, easy to use. So you want high value, you want low effort and low cost, right? So I heard someone tell me that once, and I was like, that's a great point. So lots of high value, high complex, high cost solutions. How do you get high value but low effort, low cost? And I think that's how we see the future of construction technology. We're reducing the barriers of entry, getting more and more participants into that digital project delivery journey, and making it just far easier and more accessible for the for the mere mortals to be able to do these types of things, not just the specialists, and just continue to evolve from there. So that's a long-winded story. I kind of started as an athlete, got into business stuff, learned a bit in trailers, learned about the problems, met my co-founder, and then started building solutions for the construction industry. And we're like 10 years into this.
That's great. I wonder, you were just talking about being an athlete. First of all, is Canadian football a lot like American football? I'm trying to remember if I know. Okay.
Yes, it is.
What position did you play? Were you defense, offense, both?
Yeah, linebacker. Played defense, linebacker, yeah.
Nice. What elements of being on a team like that just apply to the rest of your life? You said you spent 1/3 of your life doing something that doesn't really apply. I bet it does. I bet that team aspect of things applies to your life now. In what ways?
So I would argue, yes, it applies. What I meant was not preparing. Two different things.
Sure.
So what I mean by not preparing is like when you're trying to be a professional athlete, you need to have a mentality like you're all in, right? It's so competitive. It's so difficult to be at the top of your game for an extended period of time in that environment. You can't be thinking about like life after football. Like, oh, maybe I should get my real estate license so I could sell real estate. No, if you have that mentality, you're already halfway out the door. Like,
can't have a plan B.
Yeah, you have no plan B. You're all in. You're dialed in. Like I was a maniac, and but in terms of like transferable skills, absolutely, there's lots of transferable skills. I think One of them would be like, I got very comfortable working in very high pressure situations. Something that I'm still working on, it takes to just remain calm in a very stressful situations. But like in professional sports, you have lots of people watching you, and you have to perform. Other thing would be just comfort in front of large audiences, speaking and leading teams. I played a lot of sports, but football specifically is unique in that you have a large team of men, and you're trying like it's big. You have a big team, right? You have like 50, 60 people on a team, and you have to
Also big guys.
Big people, big teams, like numbers of people is a factor, right? It's how to get a big herd of. It's like a company, right? If you have a company of a certain size, you're trying to do the same thing. You're trying to herd towards a common goal, so that's transferable. And then I think this like idea of trying to win is a big thing, right? So like, I was recently went through a great strategy kind of 2-day session put on by a firm up here, Boza Properties. They kind of invited me in. They're really great. It's an MIT course. And one of the big things they talk about, their framework of business strategy is basically very simple at the very highest level. It's like, what markets do you enter? What markets do you leave? And how do you win? And that how do you win piece is very transferable to high level sports because, everyone, like as Mike Tyson said, everyone's got a strategy till you punch in the mouth, right? So how do you actually win? The strategy is great, but like you got to find a way to win. So I think those things would be elements that transfer over.
Yeah, the one thing I think about with winning and losing, because I always make comparisons to pro athletes. I'm thinking about in my area, it's like my favorite athlete is Steph Curry, and just his pursuit of excellence is super inspiring to me. The way he's worked on his skill, it's like I want to pursue excellence in my career. I know it's not as sexy, but I think we can all find gratitude in I have a job, I can do it extremely well and win. And the nice thing about a profession like ours is we don't have to cause someone else to lose when we win, if that makes sense. I mean, sometimes it works that way, but it's kind of cool too that I can win, I can help you win, I can help even sometimes my competition win too, and that could still benefit me. Do you agree?
Yes. So Steph Curry, specifically my son's favorite player. I love him too.
Oh, nice.
I think on this topic, which does definitely lend itself to startups, is it's and something that I think a lot of young professionals, the mistake they made, and I definitely made this mistake, is where you start to compare yourself to other people, right? They're 20, 30. Oh, but Bob, Sally, or Sue, look what they have, and look how their company's performing, and so you look at Steph Curry now, arguably the greatest shooter of all time. And it's easy just to look at what he did this last few games, right? Where he's just like ridiculous and making shots from the logo and is an unbelievable player. What is easily overlooked is the 20 years of getting 1,000 to 1,500 shots up a day and like true fundamentals. Like if you actually, Steph, but for those who don't know Steph Curry, like he's a fundamentals person, right? You see him before the gym. He's a fundamentals. Kobe Bryant was the same way. So many of the best players, and I try to teach to the young kids when I'm coaching, is like they want to do fancy behind the back stuff and through the leg, and I'm like, you don't get it. It's like you're actually those heroes you have. They didn't do that at your age. They nail the fundamentals. And in a startup or in my world, there's just so much of like what I'm doing is on a day in day out for years at a time. Is not watched, is not looked at. It's between you and you in the mirror, and it's not sexy, but it's like getting those reps, right? Getting those reps to be ready for in the future when it's the championship and you can execute. So it's like I think that's the biggest like example that I would draw from that is like it's not what people see that matters, what people don't see. It's the thousands and thousands and thousands of shots Steph has put up. It's the years and years and years and in obscurity overcoming things. Right, he was not a highly ranked player coming out of college. I mean, he was a great player, but like he was like overlooked his whole life, basically. And so this is how any underdog startup construction technology firm's going to go through this, right? You have no market, no one cares. Pretty much everyone goes to the big logos, the big brands. You're never going to get fired for, bringing out Autodesk or something like that. So, there's a lot of stuff to overcome, and it's those daily rituals and habits and things that you do when no one watches. That when in the aggregate over decades gives you a chance to have success. And I would say that's Steph Curry.
I think site logistics could be considered foundational to a construction project, or what was the term you were using? Steph Curry works on fundamentals. It's pretty fundamental to get really down to the nitty gritty on logistics. And it seems like that's the biggest problem CmBuilder is trying to solve. Can you talk a little bit about why that stuck out to you guys as an important aspect of it, and kind of if that is the main problem you're trying to solve, or if there are others?
Okay, so I will be honest with my answer, and we don't we're small and we don't have comms teams feeding me things to say. To be honest, we stumbled into this to some degree. Just again, I think the best way to solve problems is take action and figure it out while you're trying to solve it. Instead of like trying to think that at the beginning you have no idea of all the potential solutions, configurations of that solution, all these things. Right? You just don't have any idea. But by taking action, you give yourself a shot. So when we started off, we're just trying to get money and try to build a business, right, to solve a problem for our customers. And we got asked for a lot. Oh, can you make me a 4D simulation? It'd be really great to see our schedule and a BIM model and understand over time. This is commonly known as 4D. For those who don't know, and the platforms or the products on the market generally were pretty complicated, pretty expensive. Part of like why people are asking us to do it, they couldn't do it themselves, and time consuming and all these kind of things, right? So at first we were like, oh, like could we make a bit of an easier way to do this, like a video game to do this, build something for ourselves we can use and sell it to the market. Over that process, you start learning, okay, well, what happens when you're planning, say, site logistics and like a sequencing of a construction project? Well, generally, some grizzled veteran inside that GC or that, specialty contractor who's done this before sketches some stuff out. Here's where our crane's going to go. Here's where we're going to bring materials to the site. Here's our, traffic management strategy, like in terms of like concrete pump. Is it going to be a concrete pump truck, or is it going to be, we're going to have a bucket on the crane, or we're going to have a placing boom? There's a cost implications to this. Where can I swing my crane? So all of a sudden, if I try to just build a 4D model, what many construction technologists do, even in-house people at a big firm, they got to spend a lot of time with the people who are planning these things, right? Typically superintendents, estimators, pre-construction people. And I learned actually in big companies, you might only have one or two people that can actually just sign off on where the crane's going to go and the hoist's going to go. Like this is a big decision, right? And if you get it wrong, it could be extremely impactful to the project. So it was first it was like, oh, we're solving a technology problem. Let's make it easier, faster, more like a construction video game to make it just. But then it's evolved over time, and lots of trial and error, lots of mistakes I've made, mostly around like, oh, we can solve all these problems, right? Like from here to here to here to here. And then over time, due to the necessity of the market, meaning like you can only build so much when it comes to software. You can only do so many things at one time. We just kind of shrunk it down. And at first I was like, site logistics, is there enough there for like a product for this? Pretty much everyone outside of the top 2 or 3% is using 2D, old school kind of mentalities with this. Is there a product there? Will people pay for this? And just by kind of like, kind of iteratively bringing stuff out to the market, we did learn, okay, I think, yes, there's a product there. It's a planning product. It's a communication product. Basically, when you're telling site logistics is a storytelling exercise, right? You're like, here's how the ways we could build this project. And it's not obvious at first for a lot of these projects. Like there's many ways you could build it. And it starts right from pursuit of the project. And the first time actually did a customer spotlight with a great customer out of Atlanta. They said the site logistics plan is basically usually your first opportunity to communicate with your project stakeholders. It's like the first thing you do. So you're like, oh, okay, well, how are we gonna mobilize, right? What's it gonna look like? Do I need to rent sidewalk from the city? Do I need egresses to be looked at? Can I swing cranes over the adjacent property? Is it a busy area or is it not busy area? Do I have to stage vehicles like concrete trucks in the area or not? Like there's so many things that really people are doing in their head and then just drawing on a 2D, maybe 6 or 7 pages of a 2D that almost no one can understand. It's very hard to understand these things when you look at these construction kind of like logistic plans. And then, you get this analog with digital interact. So okay, I can do this in 2D, but I got my P6 schedules over here, and maybe there's a BIM model that's over there, and logistics is kind of separated. So where we have landed now, I'll land this plane here, is the idea of like combining those things together, right? So you have, a program, you have a schedule, you have a way that you're going to build the job, you have design information, so there's BIM model drawings, reality capture stuff, things that exist already. You fly a drone, you grab some existing conditions, you may have surveys, these types of, all your project artifacts typically are there in the early stages. And you need to find a way to combine these things together, from a schedule to the project model. Let's say if there is one, usually there is nowadays, but let's say they're not, there's ways to do that. And then your logistical, like your temporary works, things that show up and leave. And that was a big gap. It still is. We're trying to solve that, which is like, is it a scaffolding job? Are you using cherry pickers? Where are you going to, can you access this? Where you meant, great example at the beginning, if I put a concrete pump truck in the northeast of the site, does it actually reach to where we needed to get to? So we realized like that was being planned almost separately than the other means and methods, let's call it. And by combining all those things together and making it really easy. So there's a lot of tech stuff here, but really our goal is like the simplest, most elegant solution should win. So like drag and drop, just really easy to do, running right in your browser. You can, have, an IT, PhD in IT to set this thing up. Should just be able to log in. It should just work. And that's where we are today. So yeah, this planning piece of it definitely is enough for a product. And our goal is to really go very deep into that space and then integrate horizontally with like a lot of the platforms people use already.
I really want to dig in on one of the things you were mentioning is like making it fun, making it feel like a video game. That's a really interesting, I love that. And I wish that every software company had that approach because I don't know. I just think about my Instagram feed when I go searching for stuff and it's giving me all these ads of this video game will make you money. And I'm like, that's dumb. That's not possible. And maybe some people are making money on video games, but I'm like, I wish that was true. And in CmBuilder's case, this is true. You can actually enjoy yourself doing these logistics and you guys make it easy. And then it does end up feeling a little bit more like a video game, something that's fun. You see things visually, you can actually do a timeline and watch the progress of like, well, this truck will arrive and will it have space to, so you're actually, it's like virtual design and construction, that VDC, where you're somewhat building the project before you're building the project. You're building it digitally. You're watching it get built digitally, right? And I just love that you have that approach to make it fun. Is that a hurdle? Are you like finding that this gets people coming into us, but it causes problems because, I don't know, fill in the blank? Or is it just, this is great, there's no downside to making it fun?
Well, I think everything's hard. so just let's start at the base. Every single thing. Building a product from scratch, extremely hard. Getting someone to use it and change maybe the way they've done things, extremely hard. Making it simple is the most hard. A complex solution, I've learned, is the easiest thing to build. A simple solution is much more difficult and also somewhat subjective because you have like what's simple to you might be not simple to me, et cetera, et cetera. So I would say, we're trying to follow a lot of the learnings of a lot of the startup and kind of like product-based approaches, which is like, it's better to have 100 people that love you and then thousands of people that just, don't like it, or they're just like okay with you. So we definitely have got to a point now where we have a good, base of avid, passionate users, and I would say about 50 to 60% of those roughly are like superintendents and project site people, which is like a big thing for us because when we first started, a lot of feedback. There's a lot. So one thing I've learned too, just a little insight here. Product builders in the construction space, I think, had their mentality wrong for a long time, especially I won't name names, but a lot of the big older players here where it was like, oh, you're not adopting BIM. Oh, what kind of Neanderthal are you? You guys don't even use BIM or 3D. Like, it's like blaming the user for not adopting this stuff. This still happens. And I think it's like, may or may not be true, but I think what doesn't matter, like what matters as a product builder is to build a product people can use. So it's not the market's fault, it's your fault. So that's how I look at it. Like it's if someone doesn't use our product or like uses it, drops off, whatever, that's our fault. It's not their fault. It's not like, oh, those guys, they don't care about digital transformation. No one cares about digital. They want to get value. They want to save time. They want to save money. They want to, and enjoyment of their lives while doing it is a great benefit for sure, but it's not the core. But when it comes to superintendents and site logistics, I mean, maybe you've been in some of these meetings, but like get your popcorn ready, right? Like the true construction people in the field, they love talking about this stuff, right? How did I handle this extremely complicated sequence of events, and what were all the things? It's like a giant puzzle, right? Like safety considerations, sequencing. I can't install the panels until this other thing's been installed. Well, that other thing needs to crane or it needs to hoist. So that, stacking of trades, stacking of sequences. People think that this is like what they live all day long, right? It's this giant puzzle, and making it so easy, just like drop in a concrete chuck and play around with the parameters and show the chute down to like very detailed level. Okay, here's where we're going to have flagger signage. We're going to, I'm going to have some, do we need Jersey barrier? Yeah, we need some Jersey barriers here because this is like a permanent, more permanent solution for, say, the 2 months in the middle of the project. And then we'll remove those Jersey barriers. We'll put, gantry over the head, like they're working through these things often in their head. And now they can just be like, boom, 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 drag it in there. Does it work? Oh, that doesn't work. I had a meeting with superintendent yesterday. He said the thing he loved the most about the product is very quick. He's got wild ideas, right? Very quickly, he can rule them out. Like in 30 minutes, he's like, okay, that doesn't work. That doesn't work. That doesn't work. But that's the value of it, right? It's working through those optioneering exercises and say, okay, this is probably the best solution, or these couple solutions. Let's bring this to the client, right? And say, okay, maybe we're saving some schedule over here, but it costs more. We go with this option. Or this is a lower cost, but it might take us a little longer, in terms of materials. So those are the things that get me really excited.
Yeah, and like if you're doing all this in 2D, you just made me think how you might not even realize a solution doesn't work because you can't visualize it in 3D. And that's the worst case scenario. If you kind of start planning going down a road that's not going to work, but you can't really identify it because you're thinking in 2D, that's what you don't want to happen. And so eliminating those options that just aren't going to work seems like it could be a huge time and cost saver.
Absolutely. I mean, just let me double click on that before we go to the next one. Like ruling out what not to do versus what to do is often more valuable in construction planning. I mean, I would argue it's more valuable in many things when it comes to strategy, right? Like make sure what you don't do is almost more important than what you do. So that's a great point. And I think that's really important for not just construction planning, but business planning, everything.
In general. In the construction industry, just because your product is specific to the industry I'm in, I think about the construction industry a lot. I feel like it's exciting. I love construction. I was one of those kids that I wanted to play with Legos, erector sets, and really wanted to be an architect as a kid. So it's always been on my heart. I ended up in construction management because I like the hands-on aspect of it. And I actually really like the people in construction industry. You run into some that are less forward thinking, or I could come up with all kinds of reasons to complain about our industry, and there are good and bad people in every industry. But to me, it's maybe a little bit more conservatively minded, not politically. I'm just talking about like a lot of the people in our industry have been in it for 30 plus years. So they're thinking about, I did this on drawings, I did this in in-person meetings. And so I've just found it's hard to convince people to try to move into the future as an industry. And I bet you run into that. I wonder if you have thoughts about how to help this industry desire getting to that virtual future or more virtually minded future where we're doing things on a computer, And
it's funny. I'm 42 now, so I'm not spring chicken anymore. Gets here. I got some grace coming in. And the truth is, I'm starting to become more salty. So I get it. I get it. If you run in a business, or if you're in business and you're in construction for an extended period of time, you have the unfortunate truth, which is called experience. So, so, um, so, as you get more experience, I think it becomes more natural to challenge things, but yeah, I've actually seen this before, and I don't think what you're saying is right. So when you're trying to make change in anything, but especially when it comes to construction technology in an industry where people are like, I've been building I used to shine the light under the table and it would show me all the conflict. I don't need your overlay. Um, yes, you did that, and it would be inappropriate to still do this given the current state of you need to adapt or die. So there's a little bit of like nudging, for sure. We just need to nudge some people. Some people need to be nudged, and but I do think the way you nudge people is very important, right? So it's like anyone being forced into something. It's never going to be quite the same as if you find a way to, like, you want push, you want to avoid push, and you want to find pull. Pulling products in, pulling workflows, new technologies in is way better, right? So there's some pull into the organization other than being some push. So it's tough because there's always a little bit of nudging, or else some people just never will change. But like back to what I said before, it's so important on the product builders themselves to not make excuses, to not blame the end user, not blame that person that won't change, to say, well, why are they not making it? If it's clearly faster, easier, better, and more cost effective in this industry, construction, they're going to use it. So if they're not, there's might be one of those 4 pillars is missing, right? Often it's the cost and the ease of use. I find ease of use and cost are the 2 biggest ways that people, probably in that order, because I think most construction companies that are practical, if it will drive value, sometimes cost doesn't matter. I mean, to a point, right? If it really works and solves their problem. But the adoption of that and ease of use is where it falls apart with a lot of these technologies, right? So I would argue, like, some of the reality capture workflow things, part of why it's just exploded the last 5 years is a lot of these products made it much easier to use. It's like, if you've seen that, I think it's Navis with the exoskeleton, like, pretty much it looks a little silly, but like pretty much anyone can walk on the site and it just, it's taking pictures and it's scanning. It's like dead simple to use. Used to be post-processing was the biggest challenge and the hurdle in that regard. They've made it much easier, right? They post-process in the cloud. They're doing a bunch of AI-based algorithmic stuff, or at least genetic algorithms to improve the post-processing side of things. And again, ease of use and cost. And then, of course, there's like the just overall value of like, well, is this better than what I'm doing now? And I would argue a lot of the new ways bang technologies and products that come on the market, they're just not better than what already is there. So I would say when we've started building products, I've learned I've made so many mistakes. I made all the mistakes. We really have had like a lot of meandering past. And one thing that an old engineer taught me, he's like, if you're going to make a change to your product, I would say in this argument, to your workflow, your planning, just make sure it's better. That's obvious. No, it's not as obvious as you think, actually. If you're going to make a change, you better be better than what you had before. And often it's not, right? It's actually worse in certain dimensions. And you don't be surprised when you don't get adoption for that thing, or that it hinders your growth or hinders, adoption of that thing. Because, we used to do this all the time. We're all passionate about product velocity. And you hinted at it earlier, like, we're very passionate about this. Fully web-based. It's just like driving an over-the-air update to a Tesla or something like that. It's like the product should get better, right? Like, it just sends it. You go to sleep, you wake up the next day, the product's better, right? So we were very passionate about this, and we're lucky from a tech debt perspective that we're in a new generation in this fully web-based solution where we can do this, right? Some of the existing products have a tough time with this. They have different architectures that don't work well with this. But if you're going to make changes, which we do a lot, sometimes we don't make things better. So we're like, it's great. We're so biased to change and improve. We'll better be better. And sometimes we actually released something that was worse. So we roll it back. And like what Elon said one time, if you're not rolling back 10 to 20% of your releases, you're not going fast enough or pushing hard enough. We're probably about 10 to 20%. We are rolling stuff back often. It better be easy to use. It actually better be better than what we're currently doing. It's not always the case. And then at some point, cost becomes a factor too.
Yeah, that reminds me too of like in the medical industry with doctors, their motto is do no harm. If you're gonna change someone's body, make sure you're not harming it. That should be the number one priority. But you mentioned too reality capture. I did want to ask, just because my main two topics right now, I'm really into drones, robots, and technology and construction. So I've gotten into the reality capture side of things. I fly a drone. I'm FAA certified, and see the value in that. And just wondered if you could give a brief synopsis of how it integrates with your software.
Okay, so we, again, like lots of things, by taking action, get lucky and stumble yourself into some things. So we didn't have a strategy for this. It kind of just happened, where this reality capture workflow, and specifically drones, making it much easier to grab aerial captures, kind of happened around the same time that we started releasing our product. And the big thing, the big feedback we get from users, and why like products like Drone Deploy and Propeller and others, why we work really well together, is typically, let's say you fly a drone, you do some reality capture, you do a scan, or you do photogrammetry, whatever you're doing. Maybe we're giving nerfs and different types of technologies to try to capture that existing conditions, right? So you throw it up into post-processing software like a Drone Deploy. It does some analytics. It does some other whiz-bang stuff. That's great. But generally, it's static at that point. Right? You're just kind of like, you get the end output, and you can visualize, maybe do some stockpile analysis, maybe do some comparative analysis over time. But it's not an authoring tool, right? You're not authoring, generally speaking. You would have to export that into an authoring tool and do some stuff. And then to do some stuff, that part is hard in the traditional tools, right? So if you're looking at even just bringing that into Revit, it makes it difficult. It's kind of like another static thing, but you make a 3D model or a snapshot. So our product is a simulation product, and it's an authoring tool. This is a big differentiator. So you're in the browser, you're authoring, you're creating new content. So being able to bring in a mesh or bring in an orthomosaic image from a drone reality capture workflow, and then continue to design your logistics on top of that, this is the killer feature. This is like I grabbed that. We're doing a demo. Fly the site. Here's the existing conditions. Okay, we're going to have fencing here. We're going to have this area blocked off. This over here, this is still operational because we're in a phased demolition. So they still got to use the building on the north side, but we're going to start demolishing on the south side. Which piece of equipment are we going to use? Do we have to reach? Simulating all those things in an authoring environment is really the big feature. And then what's changing now recently that we need to keep improving the product is like the idea of like surveys with drones. Right, so the surveying industry is about as old as it comes in construction, from the old school surveying techniques to like newer school surveying techniques. But like, it's pretty interesting, especially in like greenfield development out in the middle of nowhere, that just fly a drone, get a decent surface from that, and then be able to bring it to CmBuilder and just automatically snap the topography to the new drone surface, and then use that new reference topography in CmBuilder to plan your cuts and fills and excavations and visualize your site accurately. So that's the big differentiator, is like, yes, there's lots of reality capture post-processing softwares that generally end at a static output of some sort. CmBuilder allows you to continue to author on top of that and simulate on top of that, shows up and leaves at different milestones and things like that.
It's awesome. My other big topic, which I'm just going to end with this, is being constructive. And the way I define that is being helpful and building up. And I like that pun of construction and constructive. I also really like the idea of giving constructive criticism. So I think it's important to speak truthfully to everybody, even if you have to criticize, but do it in a way that's helpful. I wonder if you have an opinion on that. Is it something you prioritize as well? How does it look in your life?
I'm a long way on this regard. I think when I was a bit younger, I didn't always take constructive feedback. I love that, by the way. Constructive feedback. It's hard to not get a little defensive, right? For most people. And that's constructive feedback. Construction is also known for not so constructive feedback. Like more true. Like a few F-bombs that better get this done by the end of the day. Which is is feedback, but it's not constructive. So, I think for me, not that I'm like some sort of brilliant product strategist, because I'm not. I'm mostly just learning by doing. But I have learned this, which is some of the big players out there one of the biggest frustrations and things that you can differentiate. Because if you're a new product, you're coming into market, you better be 10x better in multiple domains against existing players, right? Like it's hard. People don't switch easily. You can't just be about the same or, oh, I'm just going to be cheaper. You need to be 10 times better, generally speaking, if there's an incumbent in your area, in your market. And then you say, well, where can we potentially compete and be 10 times better, right? So of course the product itself is what everyone focuses on, but there's a lot of things around the product, right? Like support's a big thing. How many people are pissed off with their support of the software they buy? Lots, us included. So like, we're like, of course I'm talking my book here, but like we go way beyond the normal like level of support for our customers. Like it's like a cultural thing for us, right? Like we are just like, we'll do whatever it takes. It's in our like mission statement. And then the other side of it is like, well, feedback. So I remember, talking to early users and like us as we're software users, you give a great idea. You get passionate about the product. You want to give some feedback. They may even have the product has a little form. Hey, put up here, we'll vote, stuff like that. And then it goes nowhere, right? And how does that make you feel? Like, it's like, oh, I took time because I thought it would be helpful for you, Mr. and Mrs. Product Builder, to get some feedback from my perspective, how you can make this better. And you kind of just like, yeah, we'll get to it. Like we are like religious about this. Like we actually built a whole product on top of our product called CM everything, CmBuilder, CM. So we had CM feedback. We had to eventually like kill it because we realized I was trying to build too many things at once. It's stupid. And there's other products that exist on the market that we can just bolt in that would just use it. So now we have like a very robust workflow for feedback. And like, it's like in the button, like push this button, like I hate this, change it. It's a bug. It's a feature request. You get tagged as a user, you get pinged, you get a ticket. We ask questions. It goes into our roadmap. You can add roadmap. The minute it gets pushed, you get pinged. You get an email. Hey, that thing, Seth, you asked for, it's actually in the product now. Can you test it? That's if you didn't hear from us until it's in the product. Usually before that, we might even say, hey, we've got some mocks, or we're looking at solving that problem with that feedback. What do you think? Can you give us some help? And so, yeah, and like I'm on the sales and marketing front end side. My partners takes care of the engineering, the product side. And I'm getting the hand slapped constantly because I'm doing demos, doing calls, people are giving feedback, and I don't capture everything. So we're getting much better at like capturing things in different ways, and then making sure it doesn't go to waste. Okay, there's a company called Product Board, for example. Product Board's used by a lot of products that allows you to aggregate feature requests by customer and say, okay, well, we have these 25 things we could do. Of these 25 things, these 5 had like 50 users ask for it. Okay, well, there's something, is there a there? Let's dig into it, right? And then you're like, okay, what's hard to build versus valuable? Maybe there's some easy to build and valuable, right? It's like, it's actually easy to build and it's valuable. So we score that out, the Scrum and all that kind of stuff. And you're like, okay, we just got a whole bunch of compelling evidence that this next, because in product development, I've learned like the highest and best use of the next thing you do is like the whole game, right? So especially when you're starting from scratch, the whole game is the highest and best value of the next thing you do. So you have a base right now, you have all the things in the world you could build. What's the next thing you do? And you're just doing that constantly, on 2-week cycles or however you manage your product development. And like this, and if you do it well, you got a chance. You still can fail. You still probably will fail. If you don't do it well, you'll certainly fail, right? So I've learned a lot about that feedback from users. There's just nothing more valuable than this. And in construction, people are time poor, so you got to make it easy for them too. It's like if you have to fill out a giant form and do all these things, like they're just going to rage quit. Like, forget it. So like Tesla, I'm a big fan of Tesla. I won't get into it, but like with full self-driving, they make it so easy for you to collect data on you, right? Like you disengage yourself. Tell us what happened. You just talk to it, and then it from what I understand, it will post-process that at the edge, like on the car. It will aggregate it and it'll just send back to Tesla what they need. Like getting that data easily from users is like big in construction because no one's got time. So if you're going to ask them to do work on your behalf, you better make it easy. That's really what they're doing. They're doing work for you, right? They're saying, I think this whiz bang thing you have here is great, except for these 2, 3, 4 other things. They took time to give that to you. You better make it damn easy for them to do it. and collect it and make it easy to communicate with them and make sure that they have a closed loop on that feedback. It's like, did it actually go in the product or not, or why?
Yeah, I used to play a lot of video games, and now I have a family, an 8-month-old kid, so I don't anymore. But when I did, I noticed how much I loved a video game when I complained the most about it, because that meant I cared. I was playing this game, I was frustrated about something about it, and that was because I really loved it, but I wanted to complain about it because I loved it so much, if that makes sense. But just before we go, I'm curious, if I get to visit Canada, what's the one thing I should see? What's the one place I should go? Is there a recommendation you have for me?
Well, Canada's a huge country, so there's lots of options, but we're on the West Coast, Vancouver area. So where I'm at, the big thing is Whistler. Have you heard of Whistler?
Uh-huh.
Whistler, yeah. So Whistler's pretty, like in the winter for skiing, a lot of people do that. It's really a spectacular area. And then even the summer for mountain biking and hiking and stuff like that. It's pretty spectacular, really near the coast. And then
I'll come check
I would
that
say
out. Can I hit you up and hang out?
Yeah, hit me up. Yeah, hit me up. So it's easy for you, dead north. You're in California, right? I'm guessing if you're Steph Curry fan. So you just it's just dead north. You just bang bang. But then I would say the other part would be the far east, like just north of like Maine and like the New England area. So that part of Canada is spectacular as well. Everything in between, I love those people. Don't get me wrong with this. The prairies, it's like Iowa. It's nice, great people, but you don't need to go. I'm sorry,
visit the coast.
Go to the coast.
I'll probably end up on your side before I get to the east side. But that's awesome. And how can people contact you? What do you want to plug?
CmBuilder.io. That's it. CmBuilder.io. Check it out. If you're in construction, love for you to take a look at that and plan projects better. We got a lot of stuff coming down the pipe with it, and that's about it. We're just trying to make it much easier, faster, more accessible for everyone, not just the tech ninjas, to be able to do digital delivery and build better.
Thanks, Javier. It's been awesome. Come back sometime. We'll talk soon.